Um, and the column still continues to this day. It still continues to this day. I still get questions all the time. And I'll read a couple of questions, but let me just say a couple of things then about the column, about some of the misconceptions people have about the column. The first misconception that people always have about the column is that, well, only racist white people could possibly enjoy the column or send in those questions. That's just impossible. And because those people usually say that they take issue with the way I do the column. If you read the column, it is very in your face. And I hate using that term, but that's really the only way you can describe it. It will, sometimes it'll agree with the races that people make them, the racist questions, but only to a certain extent. Because what the column is, as I said earlier, it's satire. And satire, you try to be as ridiculous as possible, but to make a very specific political point. We think of the great satirists in the past, Jonathan Swift and Mark Twain in the present day, Dave Chappelle, Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert. These are people who act the fool, but they make very specific political points. When Jonathan Swift was talking about feeding Irish babies to the English to alleviate a famine in the British Isles, in a way he was being ridiculous, but in a way he was being deadly serious. So similarly with my column then, I do play the fool. I do not mind playing the fool. I do not mind making an ass out of myself. If that allows me the space, and it always does with satire, if that allows me the space to counter the racism, to counter the stereotypes with facts, with humor, or with attempts at humor and the like. So then with the column, no, it's not just racist white people who read the column or even send in questions. If you look around yourself, that's basically the makeup of the column. About 40% Latino. Those Latinos, most of them are Mexicans, and of those, or people of Mexican descent, and of those people of Mexican descent, it's everyone from fifth-generation Chicanos who don't speak any Spanish to the children of Mexican immigrants. Questions. I usually bring my reading copy, and I don't have it with me. Well, and every question, of course, starts Dear Mexican. So, Dear Mexican, why don't Mexicans have enough gratitude for America to learn to speak English? Are they too stupid or too lazy? What, they can't learn 2 or 3 words a day? Is this asking too much? Signed, took 4 years of Spanish in high school. What I've discovered in interviewing anti-immigrant activists, they'll always say, I don't hate Mexicans, I love their culture, I love their food. In fact, I know some Spanish, because when I was in high school, I took 4 years of Spanish, and I still know words like taco and churrito and all those things. That's me. Maybe I talk to interesting people, I don't know. So, my response, Dear Gabacho, the U.S. government shares your concerns took 4 years. Its Dillingham Commission released a 42-volume study on the waves of immigrants that concluded, quote, the new immigration as a class is far less intelligent than the old. Generally speaking, they are actuated and coming by different ideals, where the old immigration came to be a part of the country, while the new, in a large measure, comes with the intention of profiting in a pecuniary way by the superior advantages of the new world and then returning to the old country, end quote. The Dillingham report went on to fault the new immigrants for the lack of assimilation and English skills, constantly contrasting them with earlier generations of immigrants, and urged clampdowns on immigration. It sounds familiar, no? It sounds exactly what, like what you'll hear on KFI or Fox News or all those other channels. But it also sounds familiar because the Dillingham report appeared in 1911, almost a century ago actually, and the inassimilable masses at the time were Eastern and Southern Europeans. The Dillingham Commission proves that the time-honored conservative anecdote that earlier generations of immigrants walked off the boats, chopped down their multi-syllabic surnames, and learned English immediately is bull beaches shit. American racism is a carousel, and here we go around again. So that Dillingham report, it actually did happen. In fact, a century ago, we were in the same position where we are today, where people were railing and really weirded out by all these foreigners coming into our...
And now it's time for our entertainment segment, brought to you by Malik and Judy's Used Cars.
Hello, we are back. Me and my brother Judy. We are trying to sell this late 1980s Toyota Corolla.
My grandfather's car. He gave to us.
It's our grandfather's car, but it's good car. We sell it for a very low price. You find it here in parking lot 7.
Very fast.
You come back, you buy it.
Time travel. Time travel.
Time travel.
Yes. Very nice car. Buy it, Dad.
Over the weekend, I did not see a movie. Let's be honest. You are all college students. You don't need to know why you don't need to waste money on when in Rome. In fact, January was a terrible month for movies. So how exactly can we possibly fill a movie review show without a movie to review? I decided to take a look back at a relevant classic. The first national holiday of February is Groundhog Day. Back in 1993, a movie of the same name was released. It followed the life of a bitter weather reporter played by Bill Murray as he was forced to live the same day over and over until he became a good Samaritan. Murray has never been more perfectly morose than in an inspired suicidal montage that leads him to believe that he is a god. The movie's balance of cynicism and romance burns down cliches and makes Sonny and Cher relevant to a new generation. It redefining romantic comedies without coming across as trite and made us really wonder if Groundhogs had a secret agenda. With an amazing cast that features Chris Elliott and Andy McDowell, the story's flaws appear forgivable, and the subliminally good deed undertones make this movie a classic. So, to close out this week's show, I apologize for not reviewing a new movie. Hopefully next week will bring bigger and better things. But for now, thank you for watching, and now let's go over to my main man, who happens to be my co-host on Nerd's Eye View, which you can see on Cypress College Radio at 3 on Mondays, Andrew.
In 1 week's time, gamers will be able to return to Rapture. On February 9th, BioShock 2 will be released for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC. In the first venture, BioShock introduced us to the twisted former utopia known as Rapture. Andrew Ryan built Rapture to meet his image of a perfect world. Unfortunately, the underwater world was isolated, which caused science to go far beyond current measures. The people of Rapture began using plasmids, genetic modifiers that gave them the power to throw fire and ice, among other things. Society in Rapture crumbled, which led to the first BioShock game. Now, in BioShock 2, players will take on the role of the first Big Daddy, a gargantuan protector of the Little Sisters, who harvested Adam, the chemical used to make plasmids. Gameplay for BioShock 2 looks top-notch. There are new plasmids, which mean new powers, and multiplayer mode. The multiplayer mode takes players back to the time of turmoil in Rapture, when plasmids were still being tested. The story of BioShock 2 concerns the first Big Daddy returning to Rapture because of a new enemy. Hype for BioShock 2 is huge. The story of the first game is now a classic among those who played it. BioShock stood out in a crowd of games that all blended together. One can only hope that this step up in writing and gameplay is a sign that video games will soon be truly considered as art. And now, here is Sandro with some important information.
Last year, 23.6 million people were diagnosed with diabetes. That's 7.8% of the population in the United States. Some Cypress College students are diabetic or parents of diabetics, making the situation close to home. According to the Washington Post, 1/3 of American children today are overweight or obese. These children are also predicted to suffer from type 2 diabetes. This information should help you get motivated to visit our health center to get tested. All services are free for Cypress College students.
For all of your up-to-date Cypress College news, go to Cychron.com.
And don't forget to look for the new February edition of Divergence.
I do a lot of celebrity interviews for, I do other freelance publications, and a lot of celebrities, I'm sorry to say, they're not nice people. I can tell you stories. I'll only tell you that Slater by Saved by the Bell is an absolute asshole. And I will leave it at that. It's unfortunate because I love that show and I love his character, and I actually think, I think he's a talented guy, but not a cool guy. But Stephen Colbert's awesome. So I went on the show.